everyone, and welcome to the Nerdy Psychologist Book Club Authors Corner, where we talk with authors of our favorite dystopian and fantasy novels to find out the psychology behind the characters. Today, I am so excited to be joined by Christian Hurst, author of the Lily Starling series. Christian, would you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm happy to be here. Sure, my name's Christian. I'm from Pennsylvania originally. Just moved back actually from about 15 years in Baltimore. But I am a creative director. I have a career in brand marketing, design, and advertising, and recently started publishing some of my stories that I've been working on for a very long time, and just happy to finally get them out into the world. So, all things creative is my world, and happy that people are connecting with the work in the way that they are. So it's been great.
Awesome. I am so excited that you took that journey into creativity because these are very, very fun books.
Oh, I'm so glad that you like them.
Okay, so before we jump into talking about the book, I actually have to talk to you about Pennsylvania because I don't meet many Pennsylvanians. I grew up in Reading. I lived in Pittsburgh for 10 years.
No way. Okay.
Yeah. And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Harrisburg. So I'm very familiar with Reading. And my dad used to have deliveries out there, and he would pick up tamales, fresh tamales from someone he knew in Reading. So anyway, that's a random thing, but there was a Hispanic community there long before there was in Harrisburg, and my dad speaks Spanish, and we love Mexican food and that kind of thing. So it was just and then now I'm on the western side of the state. This is where I met my wife, and we lived here for a few years before moving to the DC, Baltimore area, and which is where most of my career has been. And then we just moved back to be close to family. So yeah, Pennsylvania.
So, okay, sorry. How do you go from Pittsburgh to Baltimore surrounded by Ravens fans?
Well, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because I grew up mostly into baseball, but an Orioles fan, and so then I went to school in Steelers country, and my mother-in-law is a huge Steelers diehard blue and gold, or black and gold, and so when we moved to Baltimore, it was kind of a running joke for the whole time we lived there, because we went to several Orioles games, but then she would always dust her shoes off on the Ravens stadium as we went by. So
I love it. Okay, one more question about Pittsburgh before we move on to what we're actually talking about. So I left Pittsburgh 15 years ago. That's not true, 12 years ago. And there were a lot of things that I was surprised that I missed. So when you moved to Baltimore, what was the one thing that you were like, why don't they do this everywhere?
That's a good question. Growing up in Central PA, though, I don't know, it was more the kind of that side of the state stuff, like Fosnot Day. I don't know if anyone on here knows what Fosnot Day is, but it's basically Shrove or Fete. I'm not Catholic, so I don't know, but it's one of those things where you eat all the fat before Lent, and so they always have donuts in all the convenience stores and Fosnot is just like Pennsylvania Dutch term for a donut, I guess. But
anyway, the good apple donuts.
But they're the good donuts. Yeah, it's like you can't get them anywhere else. There's a lot of Pennsylvania foods that even if you're on the western side of the state, I think you can't get them outside of Pennsylvania. It's just not the same.
I haven't thought about Fosnuts in so long. I miss Fosnut Day. For me, the thing that was most upsetting when I moved to California was that the Pittsburgh left is not a thing in other places.
Oh, yes, right.
And I almost died a few times.
That's right.
I get to go because I'm in front, and people are like, No, you're turning left.
Well, in Baltimore, it's just you drive however you want. So it's there are no rules.
Just no rules, free for all.
Right. So just as long as you honk and wave, that's like the custom there. You can just run red lights or whatever. You just honk and wave when you do it.
Just be nice about it. Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay. Thank you for journeying with me back to my childhood and early adult years. So let's talk about Lily. I'm excited for our readers, our listeners, to get to know your series. Our listeners tend to love fantasy and dystopian novels. It's all we read and talk about. So if you could give a little brief synopsis, or like, why would they want to choose your series?
Absolutely. I think Lily is really the heart of it, and I'm glad that you zeroed in on that right away, and how the series is really her journey, and I wrote it as a audience proxy in a way, because in the first book she has lost her memory, and so you enter the story at the same place she is at, where she doesn't know what's going on and you don't know what's going on. And so you build that sort of structure together as she learns things. And I write in a very near third style. So it's like everything is through her perspective. But by the time you get to the third book, so I will jump ahead, because the first book is really her sort of finding herself. And then the second book is her coming up against obstacles, like things that are outside of our control. And that the second book is called Lily Starling and the Storm Riders. And there's this galactic storm, and that kind of represents, the things that we cannot really change. Even if, we work on ourselves, there are always going to be these outside forces that are out of our control. So, but book 3 is really the more dystopian one, where she's coming up against systems, and there are some Earth in the second book, and in the third book is a little bit dystopian, and most of the kind of free thinking people have left Earth in my story, and so Earth is kind of a mess, but it very much mirrors what's going on today in some ways.
Is that not how you would describe Earth right now?
And that's sort of Lily's like reaction to, is like, really, that like we're in the future and it's just the same. And so it's kind of this like moral exhaustion. But I described Lily as somebody who builds her identity from the inside. So there, I grew up in a religious family. I think growing up, I often saw people who would say things like, I know this to be true, or I know this is going to happen. And then when it didn't happen, or something came in to make them doubt, it wasn't just a crisis of faith. It was an identity crisis, because they had based their whole identity on what other people had told them to base it, who they were. Whereas if we are able to base our identities on ourselves and who we are on the inside, maybe we have a little more rigor to survive some of those bumps in the road, So that's a long way of saying that this is the kind of person that Lily is. And it's a lot of my thought process growing up, and a lot of people that I've met in my life that I've put into this character. And I think she's the hero that shows up. She is not perfect. She's very flawed. She has, makes mistakes, but she keeps showing up. And she has that sort of 21st century perspective that she brings into the future. And so it gives a little bit of a different problem-solving ability than I think some of the people around her in the story have. So that's kind of a nutshell, although I did gab on a bit.
Oh, it was perfect. It was great. It was 3 books. It's hard to talk about 3 books super concisely. But can we jump in and talk more about Lily? I love the way that you described her. I also find her fascinating because, and this is a huge spoiler. Can I spoil the book just a little bit?
It's your podcast.
A lot of it. Okay.
Yeah,
spoilers on the Nerdy.
Spoiler alert, so if you haven't read the books and you want to be surprised, turn back.
So Lily's kind of not Lily, right?
Right.
So can you walk us through like your thought process behind how someone can be a person without being that person?
Yes, and I never get to talk about this on shows, so thank you, because this is kind of fun. Again, spoilers for the first book, but yes, at the end of the first book, the big twist is that she finds out that the Krythar, who were these enemy aliens, had taken her off of the street and basically surgically altered her to look like Lily Starling, who was this time agent, essentially, who they kill. They tortured her to death. And they wiped her memory and they implanted her with kind of a super soldier, programming. And then, so by the end of the first book, she has overcome this and she kind of knows she's building this identity from scratch because she has no memories again. And so she's relying off of instinct, her who she is on the inside and the time that she spent on the streets of San Francisco. But like before that, there's nothing. It's a blank slate. And so I tried to I thought it would be interesting because, well, first of all, it subverts the chosen one trope. And like she really is just nobody. I mean, you don't find out her name until book 4, like her name from
her real name.
Right, her real name. So so she really is a street kid, that came from nothing. And so there's no like destiny for her, but she ends up in these circumstances and she has to decide how she's going to deal with it. So, she chooses to sort of take the gift of Lily Starling and to continue to use that name and live this life where she's been dropped into this, sort of space fleet. But it is sort of like for those of us who have had moments in our lives where we have to make a decision about who we are. I think it will speak to certain people who will understand, like sometimes you can just grow and change, and sometimes you have to leave things behind, you have to begin afresh. And so I don't know, there's a lot of explorations of identity in there. With Lily and being, it's a clean slate in a way, but it's also like how do you deal with the expectations of everybody around you and what they think of you?
Yeah, because she's just trying to figure out who she is, but she doesn't know who she is, but she's thought to be this person that she's not. Right.
So everybody in the first book is telling her, yeah, you've got these psionic abilities. They'll surface in time, just wait. They'll show up when you need them. They're like talking about how much they trusted her before she went on this mission, even though she was young, and how her parent, like she gets this footage from her supposed parents who are like, people will say that we created you as a weapon but we love you. And so she's trying to process all of this. And then she learns, at the end of the book, she realizes that she really isn't Lily Starling at all. And so she has to decide who to be. And I don't know. I think that's a powerful thing. I think it could have gone one of two ways. In that moment, there's a pivotal scene near the end of the book where she, in her mind, gets to meet the real Lily Starling, and there's like an imprint of Lily Starling that's sort of left over as a in her mind, and she has this argument with her counterpart in this sort of mental space, and I like that scene a lot because it's shows the contrast of who everybody expected her to be and who she really is. And it lays it bare for her as well. You know, she's like, I really am not this person. And, but she has to make a decision. Then it's like, who do I want to be? Do I want to be on which side do I want to be on? You know, do I want to give up? Do I want to keep going? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think that obviously this is a sci-fi fantasy book, like that's
Right.
not real life, but I think there's real parallels to like even something that we all experience when you graduate high school and then you like go and become an adult. And, you know, if you leave your hometown and then you come back, people expect you to be the same kid
It's so
that
true.
you were.
Yeah, it's so true. Absolutely.
And we all get to be like Lily and make that choice of, am I going to be this new person I'm creating, or am I going to stick to the scripts that other people are giving me?
Yes, absolutely. And that's really it. You know, it's you enter a room and immediately people put on you all of their expectations and who they think you are or who they see you to be. Or all the, you know, I talk about, you know, people have asked me a lot about humanism because it's in like my bio and on podcastguest.com. And I don't like to use a lot of labels, but I use that one just because it's a shorthand for sort of how I see the world. But I talk about humanism in terms of like when you see another person, you see them as a human first instead of like a checklist of things that you could hate about them. And like, I just think that's how so many people see each other through these filters of like, you know, that person, bing, 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 I got them labeled like right away. And, you know, that's what I think I'm trying to show Lily as a different sort of character where she doesn't have prejudgments, you know, and now especially like she's in a whole galaxy that she doesn't understand, or at least she's not familiar with it. But it turns out she does understand it in some ways better than some of the people that have been living there.
Yeah, because she can see things because she's not embedded in it.
Right, exactly. And that goes all the way back to what I talk about a lot, this growing up being a little bit of a weirdo, and like I felt often like I was on the outside looking in. And I think that is a great perspective for an artist, especially because like you observe, and I try to approach things with empathy. And so it's like I feel like it's fascinating. It's interesting to me to see how people react and the just baseline level of humanity that people have, that we all have more in common than we have different. But I think that also it can be incredibly lonely. And I think you see that with Lily. It's like because she has this perspective, it's also very hard for her to get close to people because she doesn't necessarily want to make their thing her thing. You know, it's, you know, people often bond over these all-consuming things, whether it's you're a Star Wars fan or whether it's, you know, it's something that you make your whole identity around. And like, so if you're somebody who doesn't want to do that, it can be a little bit, you know, you can be seen as an outsider. But the other main message, especially in book one, is that connection will happen. You'll find that connection if you're true to yourself. It sometimes feels like it won't, but it will. It really happens.
And it'll be more authentic and meaningful connection because
Absolutely.
It's who you are and not who other people want you to be.
Exactly.
So can I ask, you might not have an answer to this, and that's okay because It's a really big question. But in writing this and knowing all that you know about Lily and about humanity, what do you think makes somebody themselves?
Well, I think it is I think that we are, that our identity does come from the inside. So I talk a lot about building identities, but I do think that you have sort of an inherent identity, that whether it's like you're born with it or if it's a collection of things that you gain in your early life. I'm not sure, and you know, existentially about the existence of a soul. I don't know those things. I don't think anybody really can know those things for sure. But I do think that by the time we're an adult, especially, we have some sort of established identity that we can draw on if we're honest with ourselves. I think I encourage people to have those introspective, that sort of conversation with yourself. But I think a lot of people are very uncomfortable with that. And so I think stories are a great way for people to do that. Like for me, science fiction and reading a lot of the classics when I was a kid, I read a lot of books and I loved, Star Trek and all sorts of stuff. But it allows an escape, but it also allows you to sort of craft this idea of who you are because you can play it out in these fictional scenarios that are a little less close to home. You get this fantastical world to enact your your desires and your goals and your wishes and your dreams, and you start to solidify, I think, who you are on the inside instead of just automatically accepting what other people tell you. I've known a lot of people who, like, for example, I left the Mormon church when I was an adult, and I have known a lot of people with major events like that in their life, whether they walked away from a religion or their family or moved to a new place. And it's interesting because some people, inevitably, you will see they will walk away from like a major controlling religion or a cult or something and immediately go into another one or they will make like leaving the church their entire identity. They'll just talk about it all the time. Well, I'm not in that anymore. But see, like I'm the total opposite. I never think about it. I don't wake up every morning and go, I'm not Mormon today, And so I think it's a mindset change, where people do gravitate toward opportunities for other people to tell them who they are, because it is easy. I mean, in some ways it's easier, right? You have an authority figure and they tell you how to think, and then you're like, oh, good. I can outsource that moral responsibility. And so it is harder the other way, I think, to build it one brick at a time on the inside. But to answer your question, who we are, I do think there is something fixed about it. And exploring it is almost as exciting as like taking a starship out into the galaxy if you're brave enough to do it.
Oh my gosh, I could not agree more. Hence why I'm a psychologist and do therapy, because that experience of self-exploration, man, is it hard, but it is beautiful.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely.
Well, Christian, we're coming to the end of the time, and I can't believe this 30 minutes went by so fast. It has been such a pleasure talking with you. Could you let our listeners know where they can find you?
Yes, the easiest way is probably on Instagram or TikTok at Hurst Publishing, or you can go to lilystarlingbook.com, or just Google me and my books. You'll find me.
And you're on all the socials too, right?
Right, mostly on Instagram and TikTok. So at Hurst Publishing.
Awesome. And we'll have all the links to those below. We'll also have links to the Lily books, both the physical books and no, you don't have audiobooks.
The audiobook for book one just came out, and it is voiced by Erin Mello Pryor, who is a stage and screen actor, and they are just incredible. So I encourage anybody to check it out. It was such a dream to see it come together. And I waited until we could do it properly. But they are just a fantastic performer. So I encourage people to check that out.
Oh, I can't wait. Okay, so we'll have that link as well below so people can get straight to your books. This was so wonderful. Thank you for joining us. Everyone check out Christian. He is amazing. Lily is great. You'll find out more about yourself as you find out more about her. So thanks everyone for joining book club today.